Hey guys, welcome back to a quick impressions video here on a game that I just finished, which is Life is Strange Before the Storm for the PlayStation 4, also available on Xbox One and other platforms. Some of you may know this is a prequel to Life is Strange Season 1, which was released, I believe, in 2014 or 2015, and it was actually one of my favorite games of that year. So I was very much looking forward to this prequel with, lowered, with limited expectations, I guess, because I knew this was not going to be a full-fledged game. After all, the main developers, who are the main developers and the writers of the first season, they're working on, I believe, Season 2. And this particular prequel, Before the Storm, was given to a different studio. I think their name is Deck 9. And they were in charge of developing the game, and I think they were also the writers. I had limited expectations, just in case. And sure enough, I think this game was not nearly as good as Season 1, which is kind of obvious. This game is much shorter. It feels like it was a lower budget, a little bit rushed, even if you want my honest opinion. But nevertheless, it's always good, in games like this where there are characters, in games like this where you want more characters, you want the universe to be expanded a little bit more. It's always good to be exposed more, and this particular game deals with one of the, sidekicks of the Season 1, which is Chloe Price. She was kind of like your companion throughout the Season 1 episodes, and this particular game deals with kind of like her life story just before the first season, and it deals with her friendship and relationship with Rachel Amber, which is kind of like another main character of Season 1. The premise of Season 1 is that this girl Rachel, she is missing, and one of the objectives of the game is to find out what the hell happened to her. So Rachel, she's another kind of like important character, obviously, of Before the Storm, and it's pretty cool to see how Chloe's friendship with Rachel came to be. Now, the way I'm going to do this, I'm just going to give my quick impressions on the game without spoiling anything. But at the very end of the video, I will touch upon the story a little bit, so I will be spoiling it. So just a heads up for some of you guys have not completed the game yet. But as far as how the game is set up, graphically, the game looks pretty similar to the first one, in my opinion. This was done in a different physics engine. I think this was done in Unity, whereas the first season was done in something else. But I thought the graphics looked pretty similar. And I'll go ahead and say maybe the first game looked a little bit better. Maybe it had a little bit more detail. Maybe it was a budget thing. I don't know. I just have the impression that the first game looked a little bit better, and it had a little bit better art direction. But maybe that's just me. I haven't played that game ever since I beat it, 2 or 3 years ago. So, and then the voice acting, I think, in this game is also not the greatest. I wasn't a huge fan of Season 1 as well. I think the voice acting in certain parts of the game was a little bit cringeworthy, and it doesn't have that same level of quality as, say, the Telltale games, where I think the scripting and the voice acting is just a little bit more, I don't know, just better. But there were a lot of cringeworthy moments in Before the Storm, and I thought that the dialogue scripts could have been a little bit better and more elaborate. But overall, nothing too bad. And I think one of the main complaints from the fans was that Chloe Price, she's now the main protagonist in Before the Storm, is that her actually voice character changed. But I think the general consensus is that whoever played Chloe Price in this Before the Storm did a really good job. Myself, I didn't really even notice that. It's been so long since I played Season 1 that I kind of forgot what she sounded like. So, but I thought the voice actress did a pretty good job in Before the Storm. I didn't find anything bad or anything like that, and fans were, I think, in the end, they were pretty pleased with how everything turned out. And then you have the main elements of the game. The gameplay took a hit versus Season 1, and that was to be expected. I was ready for that. because in season 1 the main draw is that you can kind of like control time. You can rewind time to change some of the decisions you've made. Obviously, Chloe Price, she doesn't have these supernatural powers, so you're not able to use those superpowers. So the gameplay in this game is much more normal. You know, you're just a normal girl, and the way the game plays is just like your typical adventure game where you can inspect items and the environment for clues. And you know, the meat and potatoes obviously relies on communicating with other characters throughout the game and making decisions based on the dialogue. So a much more simplistic approach to gameplay, which was unfortunate but expected. They do have a new gameplay, I guess, mechanic. I forgot the specific name, but it's kind of like Chloe doing a rebuttal on a character's opinion, and you have a very limited time to come up with different answers. You kind of have to I don't know, like argue back with the other character, and if you do it successfully, then you can affect the game in different ways. It's kind of hard to explain, but that's kind of like the new, I guess, gimmick of this particular episode. And you know, I thought it was a good addition, but nothing nothing that's gonna change the world or anything. But it was a good addition nevertheless. And then of course, I think you have the length of the game, which again, this is not a full-fledged season like the first one was. So the game is much shorter. Each episode is like maybe 2 hours long or something like that. And I do feel like it was rushed. My overall thoughts on the story, without spoiling anything, is that to me it felt like the game was rushed in a lot of parts. In all 3 chapters, I could feel that there was some kind of rush to get the point across, and that, in my opinion, hurt my immersion factor a little bit, at least. And especially the 3rd episode, which is a shame. I think, in my opinion, is the weakest one, which is a shame, because it's the final episode. You want some closure on everything, and you do get like closure. This game doesn't leave you hanging too much, in my opinion, with the way the game ends. But the reason I'm kind of disappointed on the final episode is that everything felt rushed, and there were some things or events in the episode that kind of like took away from the immersion. And I'll go in detail in a couple minutes here. And then you have the soundtrack of the game, which was pretty good. You have some indie rock or pop. I'm not a huge fan of indie music, but for this type of game, it's really appropriate. It goes in line with what the first game had in going on, with the indie soundtrack. So it's very fitting to the game, and I think it helps create the mood, and it sets the environment for the characters and the overall mood of the game. Now, I guess I'm gonna jump into the spoilers right now. So if you guys have not completed the game yet, thanks for watching. But things that I wish the game would have done better, and I'm gonna focus here on the 3rd episode, or the final episode. One thing that really took the immersion away from me is the scene where you go to the Rachel's house and you start investigating the dad's office for clues on where to find Sarah, Rachel's mom, and that already was kind of like, well, you're going there, you're invading the private property, and you're doing everything to please this one girl, and then this one guy, Elliot. I thought that scene was just I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of him just jumping into the house after you investigated and did all this crap. So I thought that was kind of like, I don't know. It broke the immersion for me, at least. And then, the fact that you fight, kind of like argue and fight with Elliot, and then the alarm goes off, and then later in the game when you're back in the hospital and you talk to Rachel's dad, he acts like nothing happened. Like, I mean, come on, you're like the district attorney for Arcadia Bay, and you're gonna tell me that the police didn't notify you that somebody broke into your house to steal and destroyed evidence? I mean, that to me right there was a major hit as far as the story and the way the gameplay is told. How the hell did he not know anything? Maybe I'm missing something, but to me it's pretty obvious that they kind of like didn't really thought about that. And another thing was, I felt like it was rushed. Your whole saving Sarah was a little bit rushed. And I think, when I went back to my final stats in the game, that's when I found out that there's actually a way where you can have Rachel meet Sarah. And the choices were 90% of people were not able to accomplish that, myself included. And that, I think, speaks for itself for how poorly the game was designed, because I think it should have been easier for the players to have that option. And I already looked it up, on how to have Sarah, how to reunite them. And you basically have to forego the kiss between Rachel and Chloe, which kind of sucks, because most people went for the kiss, myself included, because that's where you kind of want things to lead, based on the events of season 1. There's something went on in between them, and you can tell they have this beautiful thing going on in between them, so you have to forego the kiss and then get the bracelet, and then on top of that you have to do certain dialogue options in that final chapter with Sarah. So it's a very limited, very hard to get type of ending, I guess. And that, in my opinion, should have been something more easily accessible for the players to have that choice. So I'm gonna have to go back and either watch it on YouTube or do it myself, just to see what that ending looks like. Myself, I chose in the end to tell Rachel everything. I don't know why I felt like doing that. Just came up straightforward and told her the truth, even though Sarah didn't want you to tell her that. I do want to go back and kind of choose the opposite, the other option you have at the end, to just hide the truth, just to see what happens. But I'm assuming the endings will be kind of like the same, because no matter what you choose, the events of season 1 will happen as they are, and that's that. Another thing I didn't really like was how this game makes you feel like Chloe is a very important person to Rachel. Like, you can tell there's something more than a friendship building between them. But in season 1, that kind of goes away really quickly. And supposedly in season 1, Rachel had this thing going on with Frank, I think it was called, the drug dealer, which kind of breaks things up a little bit. And there was no indication whatsoever that there was nothing going on in between them. I don't even think they met actually in Before the Storm. But even then, it's kind of sad to see how all of a sudden she just loses interest in Chloe, or maybe something happened along the line, I don't know. But I thought that was kind of poorly treated as well, in my opinion at least. And then there were some cool things about the game, the whole building the relationship, and seeing more of Chloe is always fun. Seeing more of Joyce and her her new their stepdad, David, I think it was. It was kind of fun to see how that came to be, and you get some more intimate details about Chloe's relationship with her dad and things like that. So overall, it was a good game. I'm grateful that Square Enix decided to go for this and publish this, and it was an interesting story. I just wish it was a little bit more solid. I just wish it had a little bit more detail in the events. And overall, I'm looking forward to the final side episode called Farewell, because I did get the limited or collector's edition, whatever they call it, which is supposed to have this final episode, which is a prequel to Before the Storm. And it's kind of like the farewell between Max and Chloe, which should be pretty emotional and pretty cool to see. And on a final note, the very last scene of the game, he just gave me the creeps. played both season 1 and Before the Storm, obviously. That's kind of like the dark room scene where pictures of Rachel are being taken. That gave me the chills, like in a very creepy and uncomfortable way. Actually, that's one of the strongest scenes that I've seen on a video game. Obviously, you need to know what happened to get that full effect, but which I of course I did, and that was really like creepy and like a very, very powerful moment. Actually, like it wasn't easy to stomach that final scene, with the cell phone ringing in the dark room, and knowing, ultimately what happened to Rachel. That was very, in my opinion, a very strong scene. And in fact, some people from the Life is Strange, fans or whatever, they were complaining because it was such a strong scene in the end. But yeah, overall a good game. I just wish it was better in certain regards, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching,